everybody. If you're new to the channel, my name is Lisa Buchanan, and I've been teaching English as a second language for over 10 years now. Today, I want to talk to you about small talk. How do you improve in your conversational skills when it comes to small talk? First, we must remember small talk is expected culturally. In particular, the American culture. We do expect you to be able to engage in small talk. But why do students struggle? How do you become better? First of all, study conversation by use of dialogues, and we're going to do that today. So in this video, we're going to study dialogues. I'm going to show you 4 short videos. They're animated, but you'll get the point, of successful small talk conversations. And there are various situations or scenarios where you will expect to engage in small talk. So let's jump right into it. Let's look at the first video. As you watch the video, please remember that conversation is like tennis. You should always have that technique in your mind. It's a back and forth. You say something, they say something. You hit the ball, they hit the ball. And this is one reason why students struggle with small talk, is because you don't know how to advance the conversation. And I'm going to show you that. Also, towards the end of this video, I'm going to do a review of a very handy book that I use in my lessons and that I share with my students for studying conversations. So let's look at the first video, and then we're going to talk about why it was so successful.
So, Mark, I detect an American accent. Are you from the States?
Yes, that's right. Have you ever been there?
No, but I've always wanted to go. Whereabouts do you come from in the States?
Well, I was born and brought up in San Diego. How about you? Did you grow up in London?
No, actually, I come from Brighton originally.
What exactly are you doing in London?
I work as an assistant for a television studio. It's pretty cool because I get to meet a lot of interesting people. I also get on really well with my colleagues, and I've made a lot of friends.
Sounds interesting. How long are you here for?
I'm here until the summer. Then I intend to go backpacking around Europe.
Great.
How about you? What line of work are you in?
Actually, I'm a student. I'm doing a master's degree in architecture. I hope to work for an architectural firm in London when I graduate.
Oh, that's interesting. I imagine you must be a very creative person.
Well, I try to be.
How long have you been studying in London?
About a year, though it seems much longer.
How do you like the city?
I love it. There's such a variety of things to see and do. I'm not too keen on the weather, though.
Yes, it's been a pretty wet summer this year, even by London standards. What's the weather like in San Diego at this time of year?
Oh, it's pretty sunny right now. So, what do you like doing in your spare time?
Well, recently, I've taken up yoga, so I've been spending quite a bit of time practicing it. Apart from that, I enjoy reading, going out and visiting museums, and occasionally going to concerts.
Oh, really? What kind of music are you into?
Mainly rock, though I listen to jazz and classical sometimes.
So here are 12 phrases that were used in the conversation you just watched. What do you notice about these 12 phrases? That's right. They're all questions. So the use of questions is one way to advance conversation and make small talk a lot easier. Remember, conversation is like tennis. They said something to you, you answer, you have to hit the ball back or ask a question. The struggle that students have is you get so concerned about what am I going to say when I'm asked a question? You forget that you too have to ask questions of the other person. What kind of questions can you ask? That was a very successful conversation that you watched. Remembering to ask simple things, for example, phrase 10, what's the weather like? Or 11, what do you like to do on your spare time? Talking about hobbies. Or number 6, really, how long have you been here? How long are you here for? Where did you go up? Number 4, those are questions you should be ready to answer and also ask. Okay, let's jump into the next video.
Hi, Alice. How's it going?
Not too bad. How was your weekend?
Pretty good. On Saturday, I went on a boat ride along the Mississippi River with a friend of mine from Italy. It was his first time in the U.S.
Sounds good. Unfortunately, I had the flu, so I was stuck in bed.
How are you feeling now?
I'm much better, thanks.
Glad to hear it.
Oh, is that the time? I should be going. I have to do some shopping before the stores close.
Okay, I'll let you go then. Say hello to George for me.
Sure, see you.
So this is a commentation talking about your weekend when you return on Monday. This is cultural. You're expected to express very freely what you did on the weekend. So Alice asks, how was your weekend? Simon answers pretty good, but he goes on to give more details. So we can't just answer good. The conversation will likely end. If you can give more details, you give the other person something to work with. So Alice says, sounds good. And she also mentions how she was feeling. She said she had the flu. Notice that Simon answers with a question. How are you feeling now? That advances the conversation because Alice is asked a question. If Simon said something else, if he said, oh, sorry to hear you weren't feeling well, Alice, or sorry to hear that, the conversation could have ended early, but this is ensuring that the conversation is going to keep going because he asked a question and Alice has to answer. So this is a very good example conversation of how to talk about your weekend. Let's examine the next dialogue.
Hello, Miss Jones. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Just fine. Wonderful weather, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We sometimes get good weather in Seattle. It's not all rain, rain, rain.
Yes, I see that.
Well, I have several important meetings today, so I must be on my way.
Oh well, I won't keep you then. Give my regards to your husband.
I'll do that. Goodbye.
So in this situation, the two people know each other. So instead of just passing each other by and saying, hi, bye, they take the opportunity to engage in small talk. There's two things that I highlighted that they do very well to advance the conversation. So when Mrs. Jones is asked, how are you today? She doesn't just say, very well, thank you, and that's it. She says, and you? That advances the conversation. So that's called reflection, where if you're asked a question, you can ask the same question back or something very similar. So now he is forced to answer her. He says, just fine. Wonderful weather. And he doesn't just stop there. He asks a question. He uses what's called a question tag. Isn't it? I'll talk about question tags more in a moment, but they have a purpose. For one thing, and this is the one thing that you really want in conversation, the one thing that it does is it requires a response. So let's talk a little bit more about what question tags are and why you should be using them if you are not currently. So question tags can be very helpful in advancing the conversation. Also, they have different purposes. It can emphasize something that you want to say or start a conversation. A simple example would be, nice weather today, isn't it? We saw that in the previous dialogue. So a question tag really just comes after a statement. It's very short and we call it a tag because we just stick it onto the end of a statement. But what is the purpose and why do we do it? For a few reasons. So I just mentioned to emphasize something, start a conversation, keep it going. But also if you note here, it can be to invite agreement. Lovely day, isn't it? The person has to respond. You can use it to check or ask for things or information. It's time to go home, isn't it? You can use them to invite agreement. Tom isn't coming, is he? Also, checking and asking for things or information, but in different scenarios or situations. You don't have a pen I could borrow, do you? Please note the intonation or whether we go up or down on our voice. So in English with questions, if it requires a simple yes or no, we go up in our intonation. So for example, I can ask you, did you have lunch today? Goes up because either it's yes or no. If it's not a yes or no question, our intonation goes down. So if I change that question and asked you, what did you have for lunch today? My voice goes down. So just be aware of that, because if you're using the wrong intonation, that could actually cause some confusion, or it causes the listener to think a little bit because they notice something is a little bit off. So it's not always the words or the vocabulary, but you do have to think about intonation when you speak.
This club is amazing.
I know, the music is awesome.
I need to sit down for a while. My feet are hurting.
Okay, there are some sofas here.
Ah, that's better. I think these heels are too high for me.
But they look really good.
Thanks. Do you want to get a drink?
Yeah, sure. I'll have orange juice.
Are you sure? I'm going to get a glass of wine.
Yes, I have to get up early tomorrow. I'm going to the airport.
Oh, where are you going?
Didn't I tell you? I'm going to see my friend in New York.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I've never been to New York.
You can come with me next time.
Really? I would love to.
So you do have to remember, to be a good conversationalist, to do well at small talk, you have to be an excellent listener. Remember, don't focus so much on what you're saying and your mistakes. Listen to the other person. That's what we enjoy about conversation, when someone can listen to us. And they did this well. This was a very relaxed setting. They sat down, they had a chance to do a little small talk. What I liked about this conversation towards the end, you notice she says, "Oh, where are you going?" Right? Because Carl said, "I'm going to the airport." So a logical question would be, "Oh, where are you going?" Notice that he says, "I'm going to see my friend in New York." Ah, New York, she says. "I'm so jealous. I've never been to New York." And do you notice what Carl says? "You can come with me next time." So it's just a very logical response, but he had to listen to the fact that she's never been there. He's not so concerned about what he's going to say next. You use what the other person said to help you know what to say next. So you have to improve your listening skills. So if you don't listen so well, you're still struggling, people talk too fast, you have to then improve your listening skills to become a better conversationalist. So this was well done. So you have a chance to go back, review some of the dialogue, but let's get into a book that can actually help you study dialogue and conversations. And it's a book that I use myself. So let's take a look at that book. A book that I've used to help study conversation and help students with small talk is this book called English the American Way. It also teaches you about culture. I will put the link in the description. But what's nice about it is it gives you the words, the expressions, and phrases that you would use in common situations. There are 21 units or 21 situations, such as talking to a neighbor, eating out, on a job interview. It also teaches you the vocabulary that you might need in that particular situation. It also talks about various idioms. So idioms are very important. I'll have a separate video on that. That is a lesson in itself. But it also gives you some idioms in these common situations. So let's take a quick peek inside. I love this book. So I've opened up lesson 1 so you can get a quick look at the layout. It's entitled New Friends. It always starts with a little paragraph about culture, in this case, the culture of making new friends. Any vocabulary words in bold will be defined for you at the end of the lesson. So here is the dialogue. Also, there is a CD where you can play the dialogue and read along with it if you prefer. They give you tips along the way, cultural tips, idioms to use, expressions. Here you see the vocabulary is defined for you. And they give you pronunciation tips. Here is an interesting one, how in spoken English we eliminate the ing often when we speak. So how's it going will sound like how's it going. We also have some grammar tips here and examples of how to say things correctly. And then it continues meeting the neighbors. So it's a very complete book, and I really do enjoy this book, and I would recommend it to anyone wanting to study dialogues and conversation and small talk. So I wish you well and continue to work hard to improve your speaking skills.